The fact is that ultimately the talent, people who are in power, people who hold the money, don't have time to create art. This is for people who don't have money. So, so obviously,
I'm talking about art, not
no,
journalism,
no,
huh?
at the most, journalism has also become an art nowadays. So, uh, you see, you can say that above, the top of the pyramid patronizes art, patronized, particularly in feudal times, there was so many injustice. But at the same time, of course, this is the positive side of feudal era and the empires and the kings and nawabs and rajas, that they did patronize art. But the art was also always created by those who did not have much money. So actually, we have internalized it so much that if you see a poet or a painter having food twice in the day, you suspect that he may not be a good poet. So, so art is from, yes, there is a possibility that because they have developed aesthetics because of the privilege,
Yes.
they have more refinement because of the education, they can influence art, but they cannot, they have never created art. I don't remember any king who was a big painter. I don't remember any Raja who was a great musician. They have patronized art, but by patronizing, you don't own it.
Zoya, you have a view?
I look at art as expression, and I think human beings express. And art is a human, like from the living forms. Only humans are artists, and I think it can come from anywhere. I definitely like his point of view, but I think it's expression. It's a form of expression, and we are programmed to express. So it could be aesthetic, an aesthetic choice, or it could be speaking out against a rule that's been set on you by someone in the hierarchy that's above you. So it
But
that's
but but who has the power to make it popular more? Is it the masses that have the power to make it popular, or is it the top who kind of what they decide or what they patronize will become more popular? And I'm talking about art across all forms. Huh?
and no, popularity is something. I mean, if it has to become mainstream and mass, you need the mass. So that could be if it comes from the top and it's something aspirational, or if it comes from the bottom and is representing people that aren't represented. So it's like I'm just going to give you an example of my work. If it's people going to Spain because they saw ZNMD, then that's an aspirational, cultural kind of wanting to do something that they think people do. But Gully Boy was is the voice from the street, and urban 20-year-old kid in a slum in Bombay has no mainstream representation, and they were representing themselves when they were making those videos and putting them out. But then it's also interesting because of the internet that they found that expression of hip hop from America. It was the American artist that the black America, the artist, the African American artist that kind of inspired them to be able to speak out and use that because it's a scavenger art. You don't need money to do hip hop. It's cheap. You can put it together.
Yeah.
So
So, Javed sir?
Now I have, you see, it was definitely a very new question. Nobody had ever asked me this, but now I have thought about it. Art doesn't come from the top or exactly the bottom. Art in any society has been created by the middle class. Middle class that is educated, middle class that has some privilege to sit down and write or compose or do whatever. So most of the art and most of the artists and most of the poets, you will see that, I mean, the rule is not there, like Bulle Shah or Kabir were not middle class people, but most of the art is created by the middle class. Most of the good ideologies, thoughts come from the middle class, used to come, sorry, confused that uh, uh, so it's a past history. That is what it used to happen. Middle class was the class that was the conscience of the society and the creator of art and literature.
So I'll just ask one follow up to this, and then I'll behave myself, and I'll let Pratap. I just feel like I'm wasting everybody's time. Pratap say I shouldn't be holding the mic at all. But you said art is about expression, and art comes from the middle class. And from my sort of, and I just think about this that today art is so much about expressing yourself. It's about express yourself, and all about individuality and what you have to say and your creativity. If you go back, and especially if you look at Indian classical dance, for instance, right? There was this form of art which was, in a sense, much, much more objectively beautiful. It was much, much more objectively to be appreciated. Your Bharatanatyam, you're performing the tenets or the beauties or the ideologies of Vishnu's whatever. I don't know. Like it's always something beautiful, which is very difficult to claim it isn't. I mean, it's a more objective version of beauty. But today, a lot of the art is so individualized that it's now much more subjective. You might like my art, my poetry, somebody else might not. But the amount of time and effort that went into, the Indian classical art or the classical music of the West or anything, the older arts, it was much less subjective. Is that fair to say? Both of you. Both of you.
I think with every generation and century, things change. And those are the rules. I look at the classic art forms as the rules. And that is what you have to know if you're in that particular field. It's like I'm in film, I will watch the classics. And they set the rules. They made it. They express their ways the expression in a particular way. You learn that, and then you have to do your thing because that's a gold standard and that's there. But how do you I'm living in a different time. My exposure is different, my reality is different. My As a woman in India, I have a very different life to somebody 100 years ago. And I have to put my truth out. So I will do what that is. And only I think if you're individual and specific, will it connect, will it stand out if it's individual to you, and it'll connect. Because I mean it's a human form, so something honest from a human being will find its the specificity will find the universal, I think.
See, when you talk of individual expression, it is interesting and it has happened. And perhaps it has, some people have made it happen. There are many things happen in society that no group sits across a table and decides we should do that. But perhaps their instinct for survival, perhaps their foresightedness knows that this is not the right path and it is not in our interest. In India and Europe, there was a moment which was called art for life's sake, against art for art's sake. And if you remember, Picasso had put a bird in the mouth of a cannon. From there to in 30s, India had a great political, semi-political literary revolution that is called progressive art, progressive literature. These are the people who had the blessing of Tagore. The first meeting took place in Lucknow, presided by Munshi Premchand, and it was across the languages. There were Tamilian writers, there were Gujarati writers, there were Telugu and Bengali writers, Urdu writers, Hindi writers. And they decided that we will stop writing romantic songs and romantic stories. We have to use a pen and our imagination for social change, economic change, and for freedom of India. So, this movement continued till the 60s. This had happened not only in India, at many places. But do you remember songs like The Answer, My Friends? Is written on the wind.
Blowing.
Now you don't get these kind of songs. You see, somewhere the privileged class instinctively understood that this is dangerous. Art, music, literature can reach everybody and make them think it should not happen. So they brought and manipulated a counter revolution that was go into yourself. You see, all this talking of politics and social problems is propaganda. This is not art. Get into your subconscious and think who you are, why are you in this universe, and so on. And we got into it, and some very bold, stupid poetry was written all over the world. And then came a time when there was a moment, a kahani, it came in Hindi, you remember that. A kahani means, why should it be a story? So what I am writing is not a story. All these experiments happen. I remember some couplets which was written by Urdu poets. चमक चमकार ने शबशीर ने के मदे मोहकम मलफ इंजील ने के. It's only sound, it is gibberish. And respectable poets were writing this, known poets. So ये जो है कि आपका ध्यान सोशल इशू से, पॉलिटिकल इशू से हटा दिया जाए. It has happened. आज आपकी पॉप म्यूजिक में वो गाने नहीं मिलते, इन द गेटो नहीं मिलते. अब उसमें बेबी का बहुत जिक्र होता है. So you see, and it has happened all over the world. You see the kind of films you had in 50s, दो भीगा जमीन और सुजाता और बंदनी, now they have evaporated. They have not, they are not there. They are not. These were the mainstream films. They were major hits. Today, somebody can, go on a suicide mission and make Do Biga Zameen, but I wonder if it will run, because they have changed the minds of people. And this is, I'm not saying that they sat down in a penthouse and decided it, but it is the instinct of the privileged class that gave another direction to art.
Can I just follow up on that in relation to your own work personally? And I'll do it in two ways. Ek to, whenever I hear about your early life, your pre-Bombay days, your childhood, the thing that really powerfully stands out is you seem to have been born in a milieu which had poetry on the lips and idealism in your ears. That combination, and not as an art form that is to be consumed. This is art as a way of life almost. आपका जो परिवार था, आपका. And so the first question I wanted to ask you is, in a sense, what is it about particular milieus and moments, Lucknow, Gwalior in the 1920s, 30s that you talk about, maybe Bengal in the 1890s, that actually allow for that conception of art, right? Which in a sense, which you experienced as a child. And what are the forces that now make that so much more difficult, except in rare moments that you see in Gully Boy in a very different kind of context? So that's sort of one. The second kind of in relation to your work is, and this is a personal comment on your work, so I hope Gustaki Maaf. Ki, one of the remarkable things about your work, particularly your poetry and your lyrics, dard bahut hai. I mean, nobody expresses it more beautifully than you do. But compared to the progressive writers, it's much gentler, as if you're easing people in. I mean, the kind of sort of directness that Sahir has in some ways, much, much gentler. And the sense of utopianism of the progressive writers has also dissipated. Is that a personal choice on your part, or is it just that you think the world we live in has so changed that those kinds of sentiments, that utopian vision, wo subha kabhi to aayegi, right? That's unintelligible in this world.
See, as far as the film songs are concerned, they are the part of the narrative. If the film title is Jinda Jala Dunga, I don't think we can write Wo Subha Kabhi To Aayegi. So it is the film that provides the opportunity or the situation where you can write these kind of songs. As far as my poetry is concerned, and I have this belief that I have used in songs also, don't ever try to measure an emotion. Let it be the tip of the iceberg. Just give a hint and leave it to the imagination of the listener or the reader. Because whatever words you use, however you describe an emotion, it cannot be bigger than the imagination of the reader or the listener. So if you give all on the platter, it will not be as big as if you just give a hint and leave it there and then ask the reader or the listener to participate in it, complete it in his or her imagination through her experience or his experience. So that is what I believe in. That don't put everything on the table. That is preaching, and people don't today. People know young people like preaching. Just leave it to them, and they will complete it in their minds.
Can I ask a mischievous version of that question to both of you, and particularly in relation to film? So, one of the things that characterizes, right, our times is, so you have now the availability of OTT platforms. Uh, Clearly, in some respects, the censorship regime is much more conducive to thinking about intimate subjects and stuff in a way in which, I mean, we were just ghastly about, right? But there is that old argument, about art, that sublimation always makes an indirection, always makes for better art than explicitness and so forth. And so, at one level, our expansive freedoms, right, actually allow for more opportunities to make the kinds of films and serials we didn't. But is there also being something lost in the fact that we want to be so much more explicit? That sense of sublimation, indirection when it comes to thinking about intimate relations was there more creativity precisely because it needed to rely on direction, on indirection and sublimation. So just in a sense, because you worked in cinema when those restrictions were really really severe, right? I mean, other than showing two birds on a branches, you could not talk about anything. You were working in a different regime. So if you want to kind of reflect on this.
So the first ever kiss on the screen of Indian cinema was in my film, Beta.
No.
Yes.
It was Devika Rani and Himanshu Rai.
नहीं 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 today's film उस जमाने में तो there were no rules after independence. ये सारी प्योरिटी जो है वो इंडिपेंडेंस के बाद आई तो ये नहीं होता था. That is the very first kiss in my. लेकिन yes, of course, you see, life offers you packages. If life would offer you good and bad, obviously you will choose good, but it doesn't do that. It offers you packages where there are many goods of different sizes and there are many bads of different sizes, and then another has many bads of different sizes and there are good way of many sizes, and you keep wondering which is the better package. So one, you have to choose one. So maybe it has such shortcomings, but then the other package will also have some shortcomings. So we have to face that. We have to accept one package.
The appropriately diplomatic answer.
No, I
Zoya's being more explicit.
yeah. No, actually, I think the censorship on physical intimacy, which is on a level still in films in a big way, I think it's very, very important that it's lifted and there's more freedom now. And of course, some people will take it to places that may not be work and maybe unpleasant or maybe graphic or maybe things that we don't want to see. But I think it's very, very important to have consensual intimacy on screen for people growing up, because I grew up in at a time when you only saw women being assaulted, and that for some reason was allowed. You had scenes that women were being bullied or assaulted or beaten or sexually assaulted, and that was allowed, but you couldn't see a kiss, which I think is very warped. So it's very important for people growing up to see tenderness, to see love, and to see physical intimacy and consent between two adults. I think it's important.
Sorry.
But just to follow up, on that is, is it only the censor board that's making you stop? Like, and it's not, I'm not just talking about intimacy. I'm talking about like in any situation, like where do you stop, right? Like, I think I remember in Sholay. By the way, if anybody hasn't seen, I've been watching the documentary on Salim Javed on. It's outstanding, right? And as a policy, I really don't like watching stuff that has been produced by the family or by the, like I find that very bizarre because I guess that's the journalism in me talking. But this one was, I mean, I felt very, it was very authentic. It really showed all. So I really loved it. And I learned in that documentary that there was a scene in Sholay where there was this child, and Gabbar Singh comes and points a gun, but you don't see the child getting shot, right? It's suggestive. I don't know. It's suggestive what happens. And I've noticed, and made me think that when you never see the child dying. I mean, in almost any movie, I can't ever remember seeing the child dying. Like, it's just something you just, the filmmaker draws the line. Are they drawing the line because they don't want to show it? It's too gruesome for them. Are they drawing the line because the audience will reject it, or are they drawing the line because of censor? You know, how do you decide?
Well, if you are keen to see a child dying, you will have to go to Bihar or UP.
I think it's a directorial choice. I think it's an artistic choice. I think every film has a tone. I think every filmmaker tells a story in a particular way. If I think Mr. Ramesh Sippy's choices on every level were unbelievably amazing and ahead of his time. The kind of terror that he incited by making those choices was more than you would have if you saw the kid die. But it depends on film to film. Like, I mean, you can take a Tarantino film and it's his violence is operatic, and
Right.
it works in that film because it's an opera. So it depends on what you're doing and who's doing it and what you're trying to evoke. So it's an artistic choice.
And but how much you thinking about the audience? Like, like, do you think, like, is the audience ready for this? Like, I mean, I'll give example, a specific example, like with nudity in cinema in India. I just can't imagine that ever. I feel like it's so easy anywhere in almost any cinema around the world. It's easily done. I mean, and it's art, it's an expression of art in a way which is quite.
I agree with you, but I'm saying, like, if you see the way the French shoot lovemaking scene, or their relationship to their bodies and their nudity, it's not a big deal at all.
Exactly,
It doesn't
exactly,
matter. But
exactly.
the Americans are a little more are shyer. Like, the French are very open with male nudity, but the Americans are not. And then we comes to us. So it depends on culturally how you are,
So
how
it's the
comfortable.
audience.
Yes, how you are, how you're comfortable you are with yourself. With how do you view it? I mean, how do you view sex? How do you view your body? How do you view any of it? It's a
So,
cultural
so
thing.
as a filmmaker, you will wait for the audience to evolve before you show that in your cinema,
Uh,
or are you going to push the audience to evolve by showing it in your cinema?
it really depends on my film. Like, I would do that. I mean, I have shot a scene in a particular way in Lust Stories because that demanded it. I wouldn't do that in Zindagi. It really depends on the film. I won't do it for a reaction or for attention. I wouldn't do it. I will do it when it makes sense and the audience doesn't make a big deal of it because it was the intent to put it there was something else.
Besides that, I mean, it is the intention of the maker or the actor that is equally important, and you can't fool them. If you are showing a love scene to titillate people, that is different. If you are showing the love scene to evoke some genuine romantic or empathetic uh, emotions, then it is different. I, in my worst anger, don't use four-letter words. But when I saw Bandit Queen, it started with a four-letter word, and there were four-letter words. I didn't mind those four-letter words at all, because the intention of the director or the writer was not to shock you or titillate you. But in so many films, these words are used only to shock you. That is bad. That is cheap. But if you are really doing it because such people speak this language, but this is not the only reality you're showing, around this, all is real, then it's fine. There is no justification that in a main crude commercial picture you use four-letter words and saying such people use that language. But such people don't have this kind of house. They don't wear this kind of clothes. They don't live in such kind of condition. Nothing is real. You find realism only in four-letter words. Don't fool me. So it is the intention of the artist which is very, very important.
So, if I can interrupt, so you sort of very rightly said, in a way, the way in which a kind of classical canon sets some of the ground rules. Uh, how do you as a filmmaker define the canon against which you measure yourself? Uh, Javed Saab, in some senses, in poetry, there's the progressive writers tradition. Even individual rebellion is often rebellion against a tradition. It makes sense in relation to a canon in which you want to innovate. So, if you were to describe your canon, your virasat, that you either take both as something that enables you to move forward, but also something that you want to rebel against, how would you characterize that canon? Is there a canon of films, a particular genre of filmmaking, or
Uh, I don't know if there's a particular genre. Like I feel I'm still evolving. I'm still finding my space. I want to tell many stories. The masters that I appreciate, or I don't feel I'm anywhere close to them, and what they've achieved. You're constantly striving for that nearly one perfect film. But eventually, I think if you look back at your body of work, it should uh, it should be unique in a level that for me it should needs to be diverse, because that's what I respond to. And at the same time, it should have captured the zeitgeist of my time. Those are the filmmakers that I love, and you can look back at them and like there was something in their social dynamic that you learn from. So it's not just entertainment. There was something they captured about that time that someone in the future could look back and pick up, or study, I mean, those are the things that I strive for.
who's your inspiration? Which director, film corresponds to your ideal? Okay, this is the kind of perfection you'd like to achieve. If
I
you had to
mean, there are
pick
just
one,
too many.
right?
There are just too many, and for various reasons. Like I love Stanley Kubrick. I love Steven Spielberg. I love Pedro Almodovar. I love Charlie Chaplin. I love Guru Dutt. I mean, they're just it's endless. I don't have one person.
Um, so when you're talking about um, just your sort of what motivates you in the stories that you want to tell, I feel like you're now another outside. I feel like you are now at a place where there is a lot of demand for your stories. Like there are all these people saying Zoya or Banao because we want more from you because you're just such a great storyteller. Do you feel somewhere that it's tough for you to resist that temptation of saying, yeah, I've got to become a factory now because I've got these line of people, they're backing me, they want to put money for my stories. And then is that a struggle for you to say, look, how do I be authentic to what's coming to me at its own pace versus the commercial sort of interest now of just kind of becoming a
No,
factory?
I because I write my own material. I work with Rima Kak,
Yeah,
who's also a director,
yeah.
and we co-write all our material. We have a pace, and now
We
that
have a
we have a pace,
okay.
so you can't go faster than that. And I feel like if I will have to do what I want to do. It's 3 years of my life. I have to be that charged from actually ideating to the premiere is minimum 3 years. So I need to have that interest that holds me, and I'll make things that might not work, but I have to like them. So it's very important for me because I don't know how to do it. I don't know what anyone likes,
Sure,
so I don't know how to do it
sure.
any other way.
Javed Saab, somewhere with that happened with you, did you feel like, when films were becoming a hit because you were writing them and nothing else? At that time, did you feel a certain pressure? I mean, looking back that, yeah, I have to write something now because, I've got the commercial side of my mind is saying, I want to make money on this. I want to,
Being a journalist, you will know that we commercial writers are trained to meet the deadlines. It happens. And who would know better than you? Uh, so, yes, if a producer signs you and you have a certain reputation and he gives you a huge signing amount, you have to write a script for him. Now, unlike Zoya, who is a director and a producer and writer all in one, we were only writers. So, yes, we had to. But we wrote what we liked. We were never under pressure. We walked out of certain projects if we thought that they would expect something which doesn't go with our grain or with our conscience. We did not do that work. Actually, now when I look back, I don't know whether today I have that guts and that kind of confidence or not. It was 1971-72 when we wrote Zanjeer. This was a time when Rajesh Khanna was, uh, slightly above the god. Uh, and this was the time when uh, Lakshmikant Pyarelal and Auntie Burman were the kings, and music was super hit. That time, you have to have certain kind of gullibility to write a script where the hero is not romantic, he doesn't sing a song, he doesn't even smile. He is very irritated, angry from the first frame to the last frame. So it was very difficult to sell that script. There was no leading man worth his salt that had not heard that script and not rejected it. And today, in retrospect, I understand why. ये कौन सा hero है? He doesn't sing, he doesn't romance, he doesn't smile, he doesn't have any comedy scene. So it was very new and strange for them. But we ultimately sold that script. So अगर हमें मार्केट प्रेशर होता तो कम से कम हम अपनी पहली स्क्रिप्ट जंजीर नहीं बनाते.
So, follow up on that. I mean, since both of you are such brilliant writers, and of course, Javed Saab, you broke the mold by actually giving screenwriting and script writing, in a sense, a kind of individuality. It's never quite kind of received that recognition in some senses in almost all any film industries. So your reflections on why has writing for the screen not been considered the kind of art form that makes for household names for screenplay writers and story writers. We remember directors, we remember actors, we remember novelists, we remember people, whose writings, but this is such an extraordinary art, as both of you have demonstrated. Is it just because it's collaborative, so the individuality disappears? Uh, if you can speak to the specificity of that art as expressing individuality and why it's been so difficult to convert those kinds of artists into household names.
First of all, it is easier to appreciate a face or a voice than the writing. And particularly where most of the people are half educated, in that society, it is understandable that the face and the voice will always have a priority. They are simpler. As far as the script writing is concerned, somewhere the word of literature has been rather conservative. There was a long time, you would know better than me, that when stage plays were not considered literature. Not today, literature means Shakespeare. But there was a long, long time. Now, screenplay has not been given the status of literature because it's only for the film. The fact is that a screenplay is an art in itself, like a stage play. So if you respect a stage play writer, why you don't respect the screenplay writer? Because the screenplays don't get published as a book. We should do one thing, that every good film, every good script should be published in the form of a book. I think that will improve the situation. But the fact remains everywhere. Today some writers, including me, are fortunate that we come on TV so often that people recognize us. But when we wrote Sholay and Diwar in one calendar year, nobody used to recognize us. We would go anywhere, nobody would run to take our autograph. Nobody would recognize our face. तो ये जो है, ये फेस और वॉइस जो है, उसको एक एज है वो दुनिया में. जो बेस्ट ऑफ द सॉन्ग्स हैं, Stranger Than Night, how many people know who has written it? No, because that's not important. ये आसान है, कान में फ्रैंक सिनाट्रा जा रहा है, तो कोई झंझट नहीं है. वो तो मालूम करना पड़ेगा ना.
Yeah, I think it starts from the industry, and it starts if you give importance to a particular craft, and you like, where does the credit of the writer come? Does the media, if there's a very well written film, are they interviewing the writer? What is the importance you're giving to the writer? It starts from there. It has to start from us. And I I have to say that everybody thinks they can write, at least films. Everybody will tell you, I mean, you'll go to the shopkeeper, he'll tell you at the end he shouldn't have died. Everybody's a writer. So they don't give it the importance that it deserves. And I think that's where it starts. And I think it has to start from the industry and the media.
Javed sir, one of the most, obviously iconic lines of ever in Indian cinema was "Mere paas maa hai." It had to come up, right, at some point. So, um, and you became famous for that line, and the writer you became famous for that line. But so I've got two questions. One is, Zoya, is it tough for you today as a modern filmmaker? Now that line is so iconic, and it was such a clear sort of it just it stood out for what society wanted to hear back then. There was an argument between emotion and materialism, and it just closed that argument. It made you think, and the argument closes quite soon after you hear that line. So two questions. One is that argument today as will that argument today be closed just as quickly in the year 2024 as it was closed in the 70s when that dialogue came out? That's the first question. Second question from that line is, in a sense, is it now virtually impossible to talk about to pay a tribute to motherhood and mother in cinema? Because the moment you talk about Ma, you're sounding filmy. Because that was the whole filmy thing of I mean, there was a lot of Ma in all his work of the 70s. So two questions: the fallout of Mere Paas Ma Hai for
No,
a modern
I
filmmaker.
think it would. I think it would still hold, and if done correct, it still holds. The mother emotion, it will still cut through and connect. I mean, it's very base, and in our country, it's very very. It matters to people, So I think it would hold and it would stay. But having said that, what was the second part of your question?
Is that now is it much harder than it was in the 70s now to do
Tell
any kind
mother.
of
No,
cinematic
I don't think
tribute to
so.
Ma?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's like saying, can you do I love you? It's the same thing. It's an emotion that's not going to change. New kids are born with mothers. That's not going to change. So it's always going to be there.
I believe that today young people are tired of cliches and they are not willing to take any rhetoric. So that bores them. अब क्या है माँ is valid. माँ is still currency. But what will be the dialogue around माँ? माँ, मैं तो तेरी पूजा करता हूँ माँ. This will not work. This will not work. तो आप अगर माँ दिखाइए तो आप कंटेम्पररी लैंग्वेज में और कंटेम्पररी एक्सप्रेशन में दिखाइए. डोंट गो ओवरबोर्ड. तो वो बिल्कुल नहीं चलेगा. मेरे पास माँ है तो शायद अब भी चल जाए. इतना कॉम्प्लिकेटेड डायलॉग नहीं है ये. लेकिन जिस तरह के माँ को यूज किया गया है और निचोड़ लिया गया है माँ को विद क्लीशेज एंड मोर क्लीशेज, तो उससे लोगों में एक अवर्जन आ गया. तो वो कहीं ना कहीं जैसे दे गेट स्केर्ड कि ये मेलोड्रामा में चला जाएगा. दे डोंट वांट मेलोड्रामा. अगर आप एक रियल मदर है, रियल रिलेशनशिप, इट विल वर्क.
So, a more general version of Anand's question, since it comes up in both of your films. So, there's the question of the Ma, right? But in a sense, the moral power of Ma is कि कुछ चीजें हैं which you don't instrumentalize. I mean, it's the Ma is the ultimate symbol of that. कि बाकी कुछ भी करो, your mother is something you don't instrumentalize. And I take Anand's question to be in this spirit. Is there something about a culture? So at one level, we were in that one extreme where you didn't instrumentalize anything, and including the kinds of friendships depicted in the 1970s, right? यारों का यार, दुश्मनों का दुश्मन, जान दे देंगे. मतलब ये तो ऐसे रिश्ते हैं जिनके कहीं you can't do any calculation about them. And I guess one of the things young people sometimes feel is that the space for that kind of non-instrumentality, will that find enough of a place in our cinema and art in some sense? They're craving for that in their lives, but they're confronted with a world where they increasingly think this idea of non-instrumentality, this is retrograde, this is backward, or या ये चलेगा नहीं, अब दुनिया बदल गई है.
Again, Zoya's film, जिंदगी न मिलेगी दोबारा, is a story of friends. Farhan's very first film, Dil Chahta Hai, the story of friends. But these friends are real people. They are not telling each other कि दोस्त अगर तूने जान भी मांगी तो क्या मांगा. This will not work. This will not work.
No, but I think it would work if the story was different. I think if you were making a film about like two, I don't know, two convicts that have escaped from a prison and
मगर
they're
ये
running for
जान
their
भी
life,
मांगी तो क्या
then
मांगा मेरे
it
यार.
would work. The
This
stakes are different.
नहीं नहीं जान दे दो. जान like in Sholay, never Viru or Jay said that we are good friends. Never they said what a man you are. मेरे दोस्त मेरे भाई ऐसा कहीं नहीं बोला उन्होंने. As a matter of fact, they used to run each other down most of the time. But you could see how much they care for each other. तो अब आप बिल्कुल ऑन फेस नहीं चलेगा. मेरे भाई मेरे दोस्त ये सब ड्रामा नहीं होगा. तो वो है कि अगर आप सचमुच फ्रेंड दिखा रहे हैं रियल, वो मदर के लिए भी वही है. उसके लिए यू हैव टू बी बट रियलिस्टिक एंड डोंट ट्राई टू फूल मी, डोंट ट्राई टू इमोशनली एक्सप्लॉइट मी. आई एम नॉट विलिंग. दैट्स द थिंग. माफ कीजिएगा, कैन आई, विल यू अलाउ मी टू टेक अ लिटिल डाइवर्जन?
Please, yeah, yeah.
थैंक यू. मैं तो अब उल्टे कंक्लूजन पे पहुंचा हूं that in any society where there's a lot of premium on mother, it means women are in a bad shape. Women are in trouble. माँ की पूजा होनी चाहिए. माँ के पैरों के नीचे स्वर्ग है. माँ तो पूजनीय है, देवी है. अरे भाई, तो वो कौन है जो पूजनीय नहीं है और जिसके पैरों के नीचे स्वर्ग है? वो औरत जो मेरी माँ नहीं है, इत्तेफाक से मेरी बीवी है. अच्छा, माँ की इज्जत किस माँ की इज्जत होनी चाहिए? मेरी माँ की इज्जत होनी चाहिए. अच्छी बात है. तो मेरे बच्चों की माँ की इज्जत होनी चाहिए कि नहीं? अच्छा, वो मेरी भी माँ, मैं तो 17 जनवरी को पैदा हुआ था, इन्होंने बुक कर लिया होटल अभी से. तो was my mother respectable on the 16th of January or not? If she became Adarsh and Adarniya on 17th, then I am Adarniya. She is reflecting in basking glory. ये सब बकवास है. ये इतना प्रीमियम माँ पे इसलिए रखा जाता है कि ताकि दूसरी औरतों से मिसबिहेव कर सके.
No, no, go ahead.
And do you see this evolving, or is this something that you've seen throughout your career?
No,
This
no,
is how
no.
it
This
is.
was a cliche which was running since thousands of years. माँ के पैरों के नीचे स्वर्ग है. अरे बाप के पैरों के नीचे जायदाद है. You better look after that.
That's a hard act to follow.
Yeah, I follow.
But it also still shows dramatic power, right? Still exists. So I want to change gears a bit and ask.
I'll just
Yeah,
relate
go
it before you change gears. Something that made, the way Javed Saab speaks, and I first heard him speak, I think I was probably 16 years old or 15 years old, and I still remember it. And he had given a very, I think he gave a very strong sale, or a very strong sell for atheism. I mean, I got a sense that, I mean, it was very provocative for me at that age, especially. And I hear intellectually you have spoken about atheism a lot.
Yeah.
But the way you have written lyrics, you have celebrated spirituality in a way which kind of, cuts across all religions, cuts across all.
I have written dialogue for Gabbar Singh also. So when you are a dialogue writer, you have to put yourself, or songwriter, put yourself in the shoes of this particular character, try to think like that character, understand the point of view of that character, and write accordingly. It's not you. When Shakespeare writes Shylock's dialogue, it doesn't mean that Shakespeare himself is anti-Semitic. It's the character, it's the scene. That's important.
And did when you write those lyrics,
Yeah.
when you write those lyrics, did it reinforce your atheism, in your belief, or was it something that made you be?
You have to put yourself in that, create some kind of spiritual aura, so-called spiritual aura around you. Spiritualism is based on an assumption that human being is made of two components. body and spirit. Body decays, but spirit is non-biodegradable. So, but it's not true of history. So, Bahar, for the want of better word, I'm using is spiritualism. You have to think like that. How a person who has certain such kind of ideas and believes in it and innocent about it, how that person will express herself or himself and try to do that. It has nothing to do with your personal convictions.
Zoya, do you find this do you find this difficult as a filmmaker also? Because I feel like India is such a devout country, so spiritual. Do you find it tough, like these areas? Would you like, do you lean on somebody else, or do you find
Not
it's
at
a,
all.
it just comes easily to?
Not at all, because you're writing stories with different characters, and different characters have different beliefs, different faiths, different ideology. So
It's another.
it's, yeah, it doesn't matter.
I mean, the operative word in both their works is right, the imagination, right? In some senses, it's not reason, it's not emotion, it's not ideas, it's imagination. And I think Javed Saab, I think there's a line you've used, which I've used in classes, which is you should live books and films as if they run like blood through your imagination, which is an extraordinary story. So, but maybe a different way of picking on Anand's question and relating it to something, again, both of you have been so extraordinary about. So Javed Saab, you once said, I think it was a colloquium in Pakistan or a literary festival, that you thought of Urdu as a quintessentially secular language, or a language that is constituted by secularity in a way in which no other languages, Arabic, Farsi, Sanskrit, right? Um, can you elaborate on what you meant by secularity in that context? I mean, I have some sense of it, but it was really an extraordinary statement and very convincing.
Urdu is around 400 years old language. What is Urdu? What is language to start with? Each language is it's a script. Then Punjabi is written in Gurmukhi, it is written in Devanagari, and it is written in Persian script also. But it remains Punjabi. When you see a poster, KUCH, KUCH, HOTA, HAI, is it English? Although it is, these letters are English. Actually, they are not English, they are Latin. But is it Latin or English? No. कुछ होता है Hindustani. It is not the script that decides the language. You can write a language. Today, most of the people in film industry, young people, take their dialogue in Roman. Young actors, because that is all they can read. I hope so. So, but so is it vocabulary? That is language. ये hall air conditioned. Am I speaking English? I have spoken 4 words. ये hall air conditioned hai. And the most important words, hall and air conditioned, are English. So am I speaking English, or am I using 2 English words in some other language, which is called Hindi or Hindustani or Urdu? Fact is that the language is neither the vocabulary nor the script, but the syntax, the grammar. Now, what is the grammar of Urdu? And what is the grammar of Hindi? They are same. There are no 2 languages in the world that have same syntax, except for Hindi and Urdu. Because both of them are daughters of a dialect. Dialect means a language which doesn't have a script. Khadi boli. Some people wrote it in Persian script, which was available the way English is available today. Persian was not the language of those people who made it their official language. Even in Maharashtra, Peshwa's official work was in Persian. Peshwa itself is a Persian word. Mughals, it is not their language. Their language was Turkish. They were Turk from Turkmenistan. But their official language was Persian. In whole of Central Asia, Persian was what English is today. If you knew Persian, you were educated. If you know English, you are educated. So this was the elite's language. Now some people, because this script was available, started writing Khadi Boli in Persian script. There must be many people, but one who got the high profile is Amir Khusro. अब वो लिख क्या रहा है उर्दू में? Who is considered to be the first poet? सखी पिया की मैं क्या बताऊं, ना आप आवे न भेजे पतियां, अम्मा मेरे बाबा को भेजो री के सावन आया रे. It started from here. Unlike any other language of the world, any other language, Urdu literature and Urdu poetry is started from, if not atheistic, then at least agnostic point of view. They were anti-fundamentalism, they were anti-religiosity, they were against biases, religious or communal biases. Poetry 400 years ago, 300 years ago. अब मैं आपको एक दो सुनाता हूँ शेर, कुछ वर्ड्स अनफेमिलियर होंगे, मैं ट्रांसलेट कर दूंगा, मगर ये 350 साल पहले लिखा गया है. कायम नाम का एक वर्ड. काबा जो ढह गया है तो क्या जाए गम शेख, जाए गम, गम की जगह है. अगर काबा ढह गया है, टूट गया है, गिर गया है, तो उसमें क्या रोने की बात है? कुछ कसरे दिल, द पैलेस ऑफ हार्ट, कुछ कसरे दिल नहीं कि बनाया ना जाएगा. तो दिल का जो कसर है, जो पैलेस ऑफ हार्ट है, इट मच मोर इम्पोर्टेंट देन काबा. ये 350 साल पहले लिखा है. ये मीर, अगेन ऑलमोस्ट 300 years old, लिखता निजात मीन्स मोक्ष, जाए है जी निजात के गम में, ऐसी जन्नत गई जहन्नुम में. So this is how they have written, and this, it's not just few examples. This was the structure. Ghazal is a very popular form of Urdu. Since you have to say the complete thing in 2 lines, every 2 lines couplet is a complete statement in itself. So when you have to be that brief, you have to develop symbols. Now, Mehkhana is the symbol of free thinking. Mehkhana means pub, a drinking joint, is the symbol in traditional Urdu, symbol of free thinking. Haram, which means mosque, is the symbol of regressive thinking. Who are the villains of traditional Urdu ghazal? Sheikh, Wais, Mullah, Zahid, all the Puritans and the people who represented regressive traditions or religion. They were the villains of the story. And who was the hero? The Rind, the drunkard, or the Ashik, the lover. So, इस language का जो पूरा thrust है, आप when you make the list of big Urdu poets, उनमें एक religious poet का नाम नहीं आया. Religious poetry भी, but that was on margins, always. ये है मेन, दिस इज द लिटरेचर. गालिब लिखता है हमको मालूम है जन्नत की हकीकत, लेकिन दिल को बहलाने को गालिब ये ख्याल अच्छा है. ही इज राइटिंग अगेंस्ट कुरान. कुरान तो कहता जन्नत है, गालिब कहता नहीं है. आजकल होता तो एक आज FIR हो जाता उसको. तो दिस इज अ सेकुलर लैंग्वेज. लैंग्वेजेस कैन नॉट बिलोंग टू अ रिलीजन. लैंग्वेजेस बिलोंग टू रीजन. इस रीजन में लैंग्वेज बोली जाती है. रिलीजन जो होते तो सारे क्रिश्चियन एक लैंग्वेज बोल रहे, फ्रेंच, इटालियन, जर्मन, स्पेनिश नहीं बोलते. और सारे जो है हिंदुस्तान के और पाकिस्तान जो टिल यस्टरडे वाज अ पार्ट ऑफ इंडिया, कौन लोग बोलते हैं उर्दू? ये क्या तुर्कमेनिस्तान के लोग उर्दू बोलते हैं? अजरबैजान के लोग उर्दू बोलते हैं? टर्की के लोग उर्दू कोई नहीं बोलता. दिस इज ओनली इन दिस सब कॉन्टिनेंट. ये ख्याल कि उर्दू इज अ फॉरेन लैंग्वेज इज टोटली हिस्टोरिकली absurd. Absurd.
Of the language question in your work, because the two extraordinary things about your films, right? One is they're also trying to capture, in some senses, the contemporary moment of linguistic polyglotness. In Gully Boy, especially, I mean, that's a big challenge, right? And then there's the particular condition, as Javed Saab described, that genuine bilingualism is actually on the decline. Genuine bilingualism. We speak lots of little languages in some senses, right? How do you, as a scriptwriter, and thinking of an audience like this, think of the question of language, the relationship with the way in which English fits into our syntax, the way in which language has evolved in the last 10, 15 years with the internationalization of cinema. Because you're one of the few filmmakers who's actually self consciously reflecting this in your work. So, uh, take us through the process of your thinking about the language question, as it were, in your film.
I actually do not write the final dialogue of my film because I do not, I am ashamed to say, have that command over the language that I'm making a film in. I don't have that command to be able to express so many characters in that way. The way I focus on me and my co-writer, we write the script and we write the dialogue in English, and we want the essence of what is being said or what is meant or what the syntax is. But I work with different dialogue writers, and the language, the tone, the texture of it comes from the milieu that it was from. So when it was Luck by Chance, he wrote the dialogue for Luck by Chance, and it was set in Mumbai in the film industry. And there's a very particular way people speak in the industry, the way they address each other, the way they talk, and it had to have that tonality. Zindagi was more close to me, or Dil Dhadakne Do on a level is closer to my world. And Farhan did that language, and that slips between Hindi and English way more easily. Gully Boy was very particular, and we worked with uh, a very good writer called Vijay Maurya, who kind of grew up around that milieu. But we worked with four 20-year-olds who were part of the dialogue process, who were rappers, and they were 20-year-olds from different communities, but that area that came in and actually peppered it and shifted things and turned things around and were there for Ranveer to ad lib, because the way they turn their phrase, we can't. And like that. Archies was set in the Anglo-Indian community, and we worked with an Anglo-Indian writer and worked in a particular way to get that tone right. And that had the maximum English because that community was anglicized. So it depends on what story you're telling, who you're saying it with. But I do work with a writer that has a better command.
I would like to tell you something. I mean, it's funny and tragic. In our subcontinent, Urdu has a strange situation. In India, it is supposed to be a Pakistani language. In Pakistan, those whose mother tongue is Urdu are called Mahajir. And Mahajir, in other words, outsiders. So in Bengal, Bangladesh, uh, Urdu speaking people are called Biharis. So e- everywhere, anybody who Urdu speaks Urdu is not from there. It's from some other country. Everywhere, in all these three countries. Now, what is Urdu? Hindustan में एक अजीब चीज है. As long as you are understanding me, I'm speaking Hindi. When you stop understanding me, then you say it is Urdu. Most of the dialogue and most of the song of this Hindi film industry are in Urdu. The vocabulary of the song, even today, is predominantly Urdu. Whether it is Janeman or Mehbooba or Tera Intizar or Mohabbat, ये सब उर्दू के वर्ड्स हैं.
And very popular in Pakistan.
जी,
Our film music is very popular in Pakistan.
very good. At least something is popular there. I'm very happy. Uh, uh, जी.
I traveled with a couple of brothers who come here
We,
by train from Orkamil to collect, cassettes. When
We-
cassettes began.
yeah, the fan following is big from, of course.
When I went to Lahore in the Faiz Mela, I have gone twice in Faiz Mela, and they are wonderful people. They are pacifists. They want good relations with India and so on. So I think that whenever they will invite me in future, or if they do, after whatever happened this time, then I will like to go there. तो मैंने कहा भाई यहाँ पर मैं आया हूँ तो let me buy some Pakistani music. So I requested some volunteer that could you take me to biggest music shop in Lahore? He said, चलिए. So he took me there. I opened the door and entered the shop. I thought I have come back to India because the wall was covered with the posters of Indian films. And then when I look at the cassettes and CDs which were there, all of them were from Hindi film. So I said, मैं ये लेने नहीं आऊँ. This is available in our country. जो आपका folk music है, गजल है, जो इस तरह का म्यूजिक है, वो अच्छा अच्छा आपको वो चाहिए, वो कोने में अलमारी देख रहे हो उसमें है, वो आप चले जाइए वहाँ. And then the owner of the shop came to me. Before that, I had met Mr. Bukhari, who was once upon a time the CEO of a music company there, and that company was also got bankrupt or whatever happened, but ceased to exist. So I asked him कि यहाँ पर piracy कितनी है? So he said 100%. So I asked why? कहले अभी यहाँ कोई म्यूजिक कंपनी नहीं बची है, तो सबका सब इलीगली होता है. तो खैर मैं इस दुकान पे जब आया तो ओनर केम टू से हेलो टू मी एंड ही वाज वेरी काइंड टू मी. और कहले ये देखिए वो आपकी पिक्चर थी ना, पापा कहते हैं उसके देखिए आप ये सीडी लेके जाइए और इसकी क्वालिटी ओरिजिनल से कहीं बेटर है.
So just a few questions we open to the audience, and we have a quick rapid fire also. But so Javed, you know, you're talking about languages in India, especially. Do you? I mean, when you hear the lyrics, when you hear the modern songs that are so popular, do you? I mean, do you embrace it? Do you just think that's how people talk now? There are 5 languages in one song. Do you embrace it, or do you feel like, oh, yeah, you know, if you hear a song by Badshah today, or you know, even a Diljit Dosanjh, I can read some lyrics out if you want. I'll make a fool of myself, but. Shall I read some lyrics out, for example?
To be honest, I have not heard his songs. But I mean, it's not wonderful, and I'm not proud of it, but I have not. So when I'll hear his song, तुम्हारी पिक्चर में ये song? No, चलो, आखिरी उम्मीद भी टूट गई.
No, but was that a conscious call? Do you feel like some of the popular music, you know, being, you know, your father's daughter, do you feel like somewhere it's just, you know, taking language to a low? Do you view it? Do you view some of the popular songs as that, or do you view it as just how art is and how cinema is, and that's fine?
I mean,
Embrace
yeah,
it?
for the most part, yes. But there are very few, very few, lyrically, few songs that actually get you or move you, or you're like, oh, that was very beautifully articulated, or I connect to that. Very few. It's most of it is.
But do you lament about that? Do you feel it's bad? Like, do you think there should be more high quality language coming in, or do you just it doesn't bother you?
No, it bothers you me in the sense, see, it is what it is. Yeah, I'm not going to sit there and cry. It's like what's happening, what people are making, what people are putting out, what people are consuming. Uh, because I'm part of the system, I just want, when I'm doing something, to be able to put something special out. That's all I can do. But I mean, would I want to have better songs to listen to? And I wish there was better writing out there, of course.
May I add something to you? People who make film, people who finalize the song that this is the song I want, the directors or the writers who are writing or the music director who choose ye gana acha, bakra acha, and so on. They are not Martians. They have all come from this very society. Now look at the language of the society. Language is shrinking in the society because since last 30, 40 years, this has not been a priority. Anybody who is interested in literature, according to most of the people, is wasting his or her time. How many young people have heard their parents going to a Kavi Sammelan or Mushaira? How many young people have seen books of poetry or literature at their home? I know people, I don't want to name them. उनके घर में जो बुक्स हैं वो इंटीरियर डेकोरेटर ने खरीदी हैं because they match the color of the sofas and curtains. जिस सोसाइटी में अगर एक बच्चा जाके अपने बाप से बोले पिताजी मैं राइटर बनना चाहता हूं तो बाप एक देगा तुझे कितनी बार समझ आया कि एमकॉम कर. तो ये जब आपकी प्रायोरिटीज लैंग्वेज और लिटरेचर है ही नहीं और लैंग्वेज श्रिंक कर रही है, कोई भी 20-30 साल का जो आदमी है उसके ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स की लैंग्वेज और वोकैबुलरी उससे 3 गुना ज्यादा होगी, 4 गुना. कोई यंग आदमी को ने आज तक आपने 25 साल 30 साल के लड़के या लड़की को कोई प्रोवर्ब बोलते सुना है? नो, दे आर डेड. Our language was full of proverbs. जो पुराने लोग होते थे, पर्टिकुलर women, when they would speak, उनकी हर दूसरी बात में तो एक proverb होता था. वो सब कहाँ चला गया? These were the capsules of wisdom created by generations. You have lost it. उसके बाद इस सोसाइटी में जहां आपने लैंग्वेज की कोई इज्जत नहीं की, you want the lyricist and dialogue writer to write good language. Some cheek, I must say.
Zoya, I'm assuming you don't feel as strongly as he does, but or do you share some of that? You know, with the death of a language is the death of wisdom of that culture of that particular society. So, do you is that something that you think about at all, or
Absolutely. Absolutely. You do think about it. And I
Okay.
mean, I'm around him. So you can't not think about it.
Okay, great. So we'll do a quick rapid fire. Do you want to? Should I? Yeah, I'll start. Okay, so I'll start. So Zoya, we'll do the rap.
Okay.
I'll do one, then he will do with Javed Saab. I thought that'll be, and then we open to audience. And look, just have fun with it. And they're short answers. And I've got a few questions, not as rapid as, I mean, you know the format, but so you have fun. Um, the one professional endeavor by your father that he's proud of, but you didn't like.
Oh, that I didn't like.
Is there anything he's done that you didn't like?
No, I.
No is enough.
Yeah.
Why I didn't do
No, I'm
unnecessary
thinking of
detail?
what I didn't like and he's proud of. I just.
Okay, okay. Is there the one professional endeavor by your father that you are most proud of?
One,
Profession, one thing that one work that he's done which you are most proud of.
I think the poem he wrote for me.
How long is that? Can we?
When
It's
he
called
was in
Doraha.
teenage, I think.
Yeah,
She was a teenager.
I was a teenager.
Okay, okay.
Can we recite?
Yeah,
I
can
will,
we?
I will let it get over.
Okay, one lesson you've learned from your father.
Lesson that authenticity.
Okay, your biggest professional regret.
Well, it's not a regret, but I mean, it's. I wish I had made my first film earlier, but everything happens when it happens. It's not a regret.
Okay, your
Yeah.
biggest personal regret.
That I should have done the film degree and not the diploma.
Okay,
Hmm.
professionally, your proudest moment.
Uh, my proudest moment. Actually, I think from all my films, the film that is the closest to what I set out to do, and I got the closest to it, not perfectly, but closest, was Lust Stories, my short film.
Okay, one contemporary director from around the world whose work you're most inspired by.
I love a British director called Andrea Arnold. Yeah, she's made a film.
The
Yeah, sorry.
the one Bollywood actor actress you'd love to collaborate with, but you haven't already.
Oh, there are many. I really want to work with. I've really wanted to work with Rani Mukherjee. I would love to work with her. And an actor that I want to collaborate with, I haven't. Um,
That's fine. One answer is
yeah.
good enough.
Okay.
The one actor, gender neutral actor, actress, whatever you think is underrated.
I think Akshay Khanna and Saif. I think the two of them, they're too good,
Okay.
and I would like to see them more.
You said Akshay Khanna and?
And Saif, I want to
Saif.
see him more.
Okay. Short answers. Is there any one magic pill you think that can solve Bollywood's troubles today?
Is there a magic pill that can solve anything? Bollywood's troubles, it's not like one trouble. But yeah, maybe more theaters, maybe more screens.
Okay. The one script writer you've admired.
And his
No,
partner.
aside from him, I should have said that earlier. Sorry, aside from him.
Scriptwriter aside from him that I admire. I really like Abhijat Joshi's work.
Okay.
Yeah.
The one script writer you think is underrated.
Oh God. One scriptwriter who's underrated. Anurag?
Anurag what?
Kashyap.
Anurag Kashyap.
I think he.
He's underrated, really?
No, I mean
Every-
he he's known more as a filmmaker,
Okay.
but he's a really good writer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've seen 3 episodes. I think only 3 episodes are out yet of the documentary Salim Javed,
It's
right?
not seasonal. This is it.
Oh, it's done now.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. I watched the last one on the flight from Delhi today in the afternoon. Okay. Why wasn't there an interview of Salim Javed together in one frame?
I think that was a directorial choice. I think she had planned to do it. Namrata, and I'm speaking for someone else. She directed it and she
Yeah.
constructed the story. And when she started shooting them separately, I think the patterns just started forming with their lives, with their journeys, with their histories, with their personal lives, their families. And I think she liked that pattern that was forming. And then that one meet at the end, I think gave it a perfect closure. At least that's the sense I got from her.
Okay.
And I agreed with her when she told me that.
Okay.
But it's a question you'll have to speak to the
Okay,
director
no,
about.
fair. The one thing Hollywood should learn from Bollywood.
The way we do our songs,
Okay.
choreography.
One thing Bollywood should learn from Hollywood.
The script writer.
Javed
The
sir?
importance of the screenwriter.
Any intervention, Javed sir?
Now, I'll say look at their super hits like Star War or many other pictures which have, they are Indian films. You have Darth Vader proved to be the father of Sky Luke Walker's son. So they are coming to us, don't worry.
Okay. Is there any one area you think OTT platforms are getting wrong in India?
I think that I don't think it's wrong or right. I guess it's the demand of the audience and what their mandate is. But it would be really nice if they made more films out of India for the globe, because the platform lends itself to a global audience.
Right.
So if they nurtured filmmakers with a more global syntax.
Okay. In one word, what do you think you could have done differently with the benefit of hindsight with the art sheets?
I think there are certain things with the screenplay I would have done differently, and certain things with the marketing.
One step more, like give us a little bit more about the screenplay, what you do differently.
What would I do differently with the screenplay? No, I don't want to say this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Two last questions. There's a lovely Alia Priyanka Katrina movie that I remember seeing on social media. So can you tell us a bit- just what's the hold up? What's the update on that project? Because that was something that
I think aligning the three of them, their dates,
okay.
and
And-
Farhan, the dates.
Okay, Farhan. And who do you think would make a great lead actor for Dawn 3?
Ranveer.
Okay. And pair?
Pair.
Yeah, so I mean who would be who's the Zeenat Aman, who's the lead
the
actress
heroine?
in the
Who's the heroine? I think that's a Farhan question.
but who do you think? Who do you make a good one? Who would be
Kiara.
the pair? Kiara.
I
Okay.
think.
All right. Cool. Thank you. Thank you for playing.
Sir, before you ask me any question, I must tell you, it's a moment of genuine pride for me that I am sharing a stage with him. It's a fact. There are very few people for whom I have such reverence and respect as I have for Sir Mr. Mehta. And you sometimes fantasize we may find some more like him, but it won't happen. Such people are not born every day. And
Javed sir,
I am a great admirer of his work. अभी आज भी इनका जो आर्टिकल आया है इंडियन एक्सप्रेस में आप देखिए कितना इंसाइसिव, कितना ऑब्जेक्टिव, कितना फेयर और कितना करेक्ट. तो ये राइटिंग अभी बहुत रेयर हो गई है.
Javed sir, you are too generous. I take it as
But-
encouragement.
But don't forget
Yeah.
that while you are asking me.
Yeah, no, exactly. I know there's a right. So I'm old-fashioned enough, so I'm not going to put you on the spot about Zoya's films and ask. But if there's one story or one novel that you think would make a great film that Zoya should direct at some point, what would that story or novel be?
Well, one script that I have just completed day before yesterday.
Right.
Actually, I had narrated the idea to her,
Right.
and she liked the idea very much.
Right.
And it has taken me 2 years to write that script because I was so
Gosh.
scared of her. So I would revise it again and again and again. And now I'm going to face the reality because I'll narrate it to her. So let's hope so. But I'm sure that if she directs it, she'll make a great film.
There you go. Um, one director you wish you had written a screenplay for, you didn't have a chance to write one for?
Goldie Anand.
Oh, that's an interesting choice.
Actually,
Amazing, right?
we toyed with the idea.
Yeah.
We had sittings, but somehow it did not materialize.
Okay. So, if you had to invite three artists from any time for a dinner party, like these are the three people you're dying to meet and have a conversation with, or maybe interrogate, or maybe give them your wit and wisdom, who would you pick?
Well, James Mishra,
James Michael, okay.
Dali, and Ghalib.
What would you say to them?
I'll listen. I'm not, I am not. I will not call them to tell them something.
But you're the host. So, one film that for you defines the idea of cinematic perfection. I mean, I know it's an unfair question, but
yeah.
It's-
Because there are genres and genres of movies, and in different genres there are great movies made. But if you ask me in mainstream, I think Godfather is the ultimate film.
one song of yours you wish you hadn't written.
I can remember it, but I will not point out because everybody who is sitting here go on WhatsApp, on YouTube and listen to that song.
Okay, so you become famous.
So I am not going to reveal my wrong step.
Right. That's the secret. So a version of the question that was asked there, which is
There is only one song. I shouldn't have written it, but I was under pressure, particularly from Amitabh Bachchan. अरे नहीं कुछ नहीं ऐसा लिख दिए ले वो चक्कर में मैंने लिख दिया मगर ठीक है जाने दीजिए.
नहीं कोई बात नहीं अमिताभ बच्चन के लिए कुछ भी. Um, so the version of the question that Ananta asked, which is, what would you like to see most change in Bollywood so that it becomes a more vibrant, better industry?
You see, at the moment, the film industry, and perhaps it will always remain so, is star driven. There is no harm, even Hollywood is star driven. But at the same time, I mean, there should be banners, there should be producers, there should be directors who whose will and choice should prevail. If everything goes into the hand of one person, nobody is expert of everything. But then that disbalances the thing. As long as there were powerful people like Mehboob, Bimal Roy, nobody could dare, no actor could. Mr. Dilip Kumar was the number one star, and Raj Kapoor has also worked in their film. But I don't think anybody would have dared to tell Bimal Roy or Mehboob, ये सीन मैं ऐसे करूंगा ये नहीं हो सकता था. ये जो एक डिसबैलेंस आ गया है पिछले दिनों में, it is not healthy for the film industry because I believe that actors become stars from films where they had no choice because they were newcomers वो उनकी थोड़ी चलती है. And they do when they are totally in control, then they start doing bad films and come down.
I'll just one follow up. It's just can you describe for us in short the phenomenon of Amitabh Bachchan? We didn't get to that, but I wanted to.
I mean, it's very simple. He is an exceptionally good actor. I mean, we have to accept it. Why think that there is some other thing? He is a brilliant actor. I think after Dilip Saab, the second man who came was Amitabh Bachchan. And his uh, actually turnover was much more than him. Dilip Saab used to do one film in 2 years. ये तो एक साल में उसने 7 सुपरहिट फिल्में दी हैं. So he's exceptional and then tremendous discipline in youth and focus. So all these things and total control over his tongue. He would never make a statement which can be controversial in so many, and he was extremely disciplined. 7 o'clock shift means 6:45 he would be there in spite of being number one star. तो ये सारे गुण जो हैं, और एक्टर तो अनबिलीवेबल था. मतलब राइटर्स आर वेरी फिनिकी पीपल, और उनको बड़ा मजा आता है शिकायत करने में. आई हैव डन सम 14 फिल्म विद अमिताभ बच्चन. मुझे तो उससे एक भी शिकायत नहीं कि ये लाइन ठीक नहीं बोला. एक्चुअली एट सम पॉइंट्स आई एम थैंकफुल टू हिम कि वो सीन में जो उसने बात पैदा कर दी, शायद वो पेपर पे उतनी थी नहीं जिसने उसने कर दी.
So to some degree, you were also instrumental in making him a star, good actor into a star. And I know this is a bit of a, sort of a overspoken about.
Yeah, but you see,
No, fair.
to say that कि मैंने ये कर दिया, हमने वो कर दिया, it's not in good taste.
No.
Yes, we were intelligent and sharp enough to see that here is a great talent, and it is the film which is failing, not him. He's a fantastic actor. We could see that. So we backed him. He gave us great performance. आप जरा सोचिए कि अगर जंजीर में कोई दूसरा एक्टर होता तो क्या जंजीर इतनी इंटेंस होती? नहीं होती. तो he repaid us. We got him film. He gave us a great performance.
No, fair. But I was coming to a different question before I get the audience quickly. I can keep talking to Javed sir for hours, I feel. So I have to stop at some point. But, the idea of the star.
If you don't, they will. Okay.
The idea of the
Yeah.
star. I'll just quickly get to this. I know this discussed about.
Yeah.
I've not heard you say this.
Yeah.
Manoj Bajpayee had a conversation with us where he said, pehle jo star hota tha with a big cinema, a big screen, so the star was larger than life. So he became a star because he was larger than life. He was doing things, almost superhuman kind of things, and the dialogue and all that. Now a star is somebody who's able to be more relatable because you're looking down and watching. You're looking down on a smaller screen. It was his theory. I'm just repeating it.
You see,
Do you think to make a star today, do you think the dialogue will change?
let's go back a little. Who is a star? A star has certain image. This hero is the combination of contemporary morality and contemporary aspirations. When the society is clear about contemporary morality and contemporary aspiration, you can write great. Because the writer is also the part of society, he is also breathing the same air. Then great roles come. Meena Kumari does Sahab Bibi or Olam. Nargis does Mother India. Wahid Rahman does Guide. But when this morality is not clear, look at these two girls, Sri Devi and Madhuri. They were not less talented than any so-called big heroine of the past. They were as talented. But did they get one big role? Why? Not because people were their enemy. Because at that point, the society was not clear who is the contemporary woman. Main chup rahungi is out. But who is in? Nobody knows. Until today, we are groping in dark and trying to find the modern woman. Zoya had told me, you will not praise me on the stage, and I find it very embarrassing when you say good things about me. But Zoya, the fact is that the only contemporary woman I have seen is in your films. तो मना है नहीं, तो कंटेम्प्रेरी हीरो कौन है? अब वो इतना गुस्सा करने वाला, ये करने वाला, लोग बोर हो गए, थक गए. इसलिए कि हुआ ये कि अमिताभ बच्चन एंगर वाज बेस्ड ऑन डीप हर्ट. So you could see the pain in him while he's angry. Then they forgot about the hurt, and there was only anger, which was crude. And that is how the angry young man went out of the scene. Now, who is the contemporary man? How much he owes to the society or to his peers and to his family, and to how much to himself? Where you draw the line of selfishness, that after this you'll be selfish. It is not clear in this contemporary society. That's why you don't have big characters. Because you don't have great characters, you don't have great stars.
So you're saying Ranbir Kapoor will never be a star like Amitabh because he's done a film like Animal?
No. I may write a film for him.
Okay. Question, yes. Can we get a mic to Mr. Davar here? The second table, I think. Yeah, right there. Can I get just a quick show of hands who all have questions, just so we can paste them out? Yes. Okay.
जावेद साहब 30 साल के बाद मौका मिला है सवाल पूछने
Manik
का.
Davar is a publisher, Spenta Multimedia.
We know him. So I'll ask you three very quick questions. One is that you're an extremely charming man, handsome, but more important than that, your wit and humor.
You must tell all this to my daughter. I am convinced. She is the one who has to be convinced.
Why do you
मैं
think,
तो मानता हूँ ये.
but why do you think I'm saying it in front of your daughter?
जी जी. Thank you.
So,
Thank you very much.
but apart from say Sita or Gita, there's hardly any comedy which is really there in Indian films. Good intellectual comedy, and you're really capable of it. But that has never happened, and why? That is first question. The second question, I want to focus on your art of lyric writing. I asked you once a question: what comes first, the words or the music? So that is the second question to which you can give us some insight of how lyrics are written. And the third question which I want to ask you, that in these times, जावेद अख्तर को किस बात पे गुस्सा आता है?
देखिए जहाँ तक वर्ड्स और म्यूजिक की बात है, I have a witness here, Mr. Annu Malik, the famous music director, is sitting here, and please clap for him. We have collaborated in many films. Annu Malik, if you can give him Indian Express of today, he can compose that. Many times he has given me tunes, and many times I have given him words, and he has composed them. So it's mutual. Whether I'm working with Shankar, that is how there's the same relationship. I have with Shankar Mahadevan also. So it goes both the ways. But generally, the music comes first. And there is a tune for which you have to write to this tune for this situation. But people who don't know, they know that this art, it's not difficult for them. Even if you are writing a ghazal, where there is nobody else, there is no compulsion, after the first line, you are bound with that meter and that rhyme. So poetry, whether it is written by me or whether it is written to a tune, has certain conditions. And if you have that facility, if you understand music, songwriters should be able to, you need not be a great writer. But first of all, you have to have a huge vocabulary, because you have to write songs for a villager, for a street urchin, for a club, for an educated lover, for a teenager, for a lullaby, bhajan, anything. But you should have words at your disposal to write everything. And then you should have a sense of music. It is not enough to write in that meter, because tune has certain curves, meaned, murky, and perfect writing will be that it should go like the skin of the tune. So जिन्हें आता है उन्हें आता है. There have been many poets, big poets and good poets who came and tried and couldn't do it. But some people can do it.
Two more questions from him. Why is no intellectual comedy from you? And the third question is Javed.
Well, thank you very much, because I thought most of my films are comic. So I'm honored that you think I have not written comedy. So, but the fact is that even Kale, which did not do that well, produced and directed by Mr. Rakesh Roshan, was also a full-length comedy. But most of the time, I have given comedy in small doses. The story is serious. Like in Sholay, you have very funny characters also. In most of the films, there are some very funny moments, but even Amitabh carries comedy scenes extremely well, so one could give him many scenes, and he has done them so well. But I believe that although अभी दो एक पिक्चरों ने मुझे गलत साबित कर दिया है, that ultimately Indians by temperament like dramatic stories. उनको ड्रामा, they are been generation, thousands of years, they've been brought up on sagas. You make a film, it happened one night. शाम को पिक्चर शुरू हुई, सुबह खत्म हुई, उन्हें अच्छी नहीं लगेगी. अरे यार पूरे पैसे लिए और एक रात की कहानी दिखाई. जब दो तीन जनरेशन जाती हैं, फिर बाप को मरे 40 साल हो गए, 40 साल बाद मर्डरर मिला, then they feel happy.
Last question is what makes Javed Akhtar angry today?
I see so much of injustice and unfairness all around me, which makes me feel very bad. It's not good. No society should have that level of injustice and unfairness because it's the sickness. Unfairness is the sickness of society. We have to be much healthier than this.
A question there? Yes, please. Go ahead. Haji. Go ahead. We can go there for that.
दीदी,
So,
वो सामने लेडी
okay. So,
जी
so what does money mean to you, and what would be your advice to the current generation of artists on the money that they earn? I mean, what money can do, what money can buy, how do I manage it? What is your thought on that?
अब मैं आपको जवाब दूंगा तो आप मानेंगे ये मैं सच बोल रहा हूँ because it's really not believable. I think that I have accounts in 3 banks. Which are those 3 banks? I can't tell you. I don't remember. I have never gone to those banks. If you ask me, आपका किस बैंक में अकाउंट में कितना पैसा है, मुझे नहीं मालूम. I don't know. I want money and lot of money to spend. I don't want money. I want things. I want luxuries. I want comforts. और उसके लिए पैसा आ जाए तो बहुत अच्छी बात है. That is the only thing. Money in itself doesn't interest me. Money, what money can bring, that is interesting. A good house, good furniture, uh, lalik, antiques, that is what interests me, not money. So please don't take my advice. आप लोग बर्बाद हो जाएंगे.
Yeah, I think you're lady there. Yeah.
Yes, that.
Yamini, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. We can take
Shall I?
both. We'll take both. Yeah.
Okay, so it was very fascinating when you were giving us context on the 70s, which was still, it had a socialist caste in India, and there was far more sensitivity to the inequities that were there in society than we have now. Okay, but I think when Farhan made Dil Chahta Hai, which was a post liberalization film, I remember as a journalist recording that there is a paradigm shift, and this is a watershed moment where there is no guilt for the good life, which you see in Dil Chahta Hai. And that was not happening in cinema before. There was always this devaluation of this luxurious aspiration. It was considered vulgar to be aspiring for wealth. So it's in your own family and your own lineage that this shift has happened. So I wanted you to comment on that. And secondly, where you say now there are very few memorable characters on screen, I think Alia Bhatt's characters have been exceedingly memorable, whether it was Gangubai. And I think maybe that's the shift we need to recognize, that now it's the female characters that are the angry young women of the times. At the same time, they're the same women who want to look good in their threadbare clothes, and they're willing to do a Draupadi strip for profit. That's another point that I put in my book, Bollywood on the Bend. They're happy to be unraveled because they're making money. So there are all these shifts happening with the women characters of the times. So I just felt like getting your feedback on this.
No, I do agree with Gangubai and Alia, and I think Alia today is perhaps, if not the, then definitely one of the few finest actors. एक्चुअली तो मैं उसे फाइनेस्ट ही समझता हूँ लेकिन डिप्लोमेटिकली मैं 2 एक हीरोइंस को चाहता हूँ कि नाराज ना हो तो मैंने उन्हें शामिल कर दिया. Do you know one thing? Before that, what you were saying, you were reading an editorial of Indian Express. When this film was released, Indian Express had given a review in editorial. It was the editorial of uh, in which Dil Chahta Hai was analyzed, and in almost in the same word that you are. So you have raised this point in the right situation and right place. Yeah.
Yamini, then we'll get to Tasneem, and then I'm sorry, Tavleen, and then I think one question. Yes, go ahead.
Two questions, if I may. The first one is for both of you. We live in a time where we're inundated with content, and I enjoy writing, and I do. But every time I've written something, if not always often, I feel like, but what has not been said before? But then there are wordsmiths like yourself who keep taking us by surprise with, fresh perspectives, unique expressions, year after year for so many years. So, like, where does the inspiration keep coming from, and what's the secret? And the second question to only Javed Saab, that I was just curious how you escaped religious indoctrination and ended up an atheist, and have you ever wavered on that? Just a little more about that.
Let her answer this, the first question, then I'll.
That is true that there's a lot right now to consume in terms of film and writing and music and everything. But I mean, the way I look at it is, firstly, I don't think that we are making any stories or we've told any stories that haven't been told before. It's just how it's a combination of things. Firstly, my experiences, my upbringing, the things I have seen, places I have been, friends I've had, breakups I've had, things, they're very unique to me. And I think I think me or who I'm writing with, our experiences are, it's our makeup, and that's no one else's. So we don't really worry about, is it going to be similar? Because even if it is similar, it will be different. If you're honest with it, and if you actually put yourself in there, it'll always have its own fingerprint. So everyone has a thumb, but you have your own print. And I think that you should just be honest with whatever you're doing.
Now, if I'm not wrong, you have asked me why I'm an atheist. Am I right? Richard Dawkins, who is supposed to be the god of atheism, uh, he interviewed me and he asked me, his opening question was, why are you an atheist? I said, because I think. That's all. The fact is that it is very strange that we who have a brain and all the parts of the brain are functioning, we are smart.
Sorry.
God is upset. So, so all the functions are smart. We are writers, we are businessmen, we are in any administrator and whatever. And we are rational, logical, and function properly. But a part of our brain is damaged in our childhood when we had no choice. And all the reason rationality stopped there. They don't enter that area. So we live in a strange contradiction. You see, 500 years ago, Galileo was prosecuted for saying that it is the earth that orbits the sun. He was put in the jail and they would have perhaps hanged him or put him on guillotine because their holy book was telling it that it is the sun that goes around the sun. I don't blame those people at all, because whatever their faith was, that was their knowledge, that was their information. This 20th century and 21st century are the time of schizophrenia. People have split personalities. They know that it is not the sun that is in orbit, but they still believe in that religion. A man in India from ISRO who can send a rocket to the precise place of moon. But moon had Chandralok, Devi Devtas used to live there. You're sending a rocket there. And the moment you send it, you go out and go to the temple. This is schizophrenia. It has happened for the first time in human history, where your own knowledge and information, which you own, and your faith are not on the same page. It is so very common that if you point out something is wrong with you, मैं एक बात आपसे पूछता हूँ. Suppose there is a man who has come from back of the beyond, from some remote place of UP or Bihar. He has a lot of money. He comes to Bombay, buys a penthouse in Ajit's building, and there is Italian marble, there are beautiful walls, well painted, and so on. What he does, पूरी फ्लोर के ऊपर वो गोबर का लीप लगाता है सब पे. देन वाइफ सेज कि ये जो किचन है इसमें तो खड़े होके खाना बनाना पड़ता है, मैं तो बैठ के बनाती हूँ, तो कहाँ बनाऊं? तो उसने कहा देखो ये लिविंग रूम जिसे कहते हैं यही सबसे बड़ा कमरा, तुम इसी में चूल्हा लगा लो. तो शी पुट्स अ चूल्हा देयर, और उसको आदत है लकड़ी से ही चूल्हा जलाती है, उसमें लकड़ी है. बट देन ही इज, I mean, it is his generation's habit to have one bhais. So he buys a bhais and brings it to the penthouse, somehow manages. Now you enter. A man who's lying down on charpai, bhais wahan bandi hui hai, he is smoking hukka. A woman sitting near a chulha, traditional chulha, and making rotis. What do you think of that man? भाई तुम्हें यही करना था, तुम विलेज में ही रहते. हाँ के ना? He is doing physically. Many people are doing intellectually and mentally. All these religions, all the religions without exception, belong to the dark ages. Their roots are in the dark ages. You bring the dark age with you. Your umbilical cord has not been cut from the dark ages. You are no better than that man who has a bhais in the penthouse. That is all.
Tavleen.
You want me to stand up?
ये क्लैप थोड़ी कम थी, बहुत से लोगों ने मुझसे डिसएग्री किया, ऐसा लगता.
Okay. Clap काफी हुई? बोलूं?
मैं इतने में काम चला लूं.
पूछूं?
जी.
Okay, I have to begin by saying that I'm a huge admirer of the Hindi film industry. I really believe that it has reflected the changes in India decade after decade. The 70s being a really, you know that very well, that there was so much anger against the emergency when Sholay came out, remember? And then there was that anger and then complacency and middle class wealth, etc. It's done very well so far. But at the moment, can you name for me, either of you, any films that are being made that reflect what's going on in India now?
Right now, reflect what's going on right now. I mean, what can you say? The mainstream. You mean a mainstream film that's reflecting what's going on? Yeah, I guess there is a disconnect.
If you show what is going on, the picture will be banned. Is it a good answer? Does it convince you? Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I think we're totally out of time. I know Zoya has to leave also. Yeah, poem on Zoya. Yeah.
You have a very good memory.
Yes.
ये कितनी देर पहले बात हुई थी, कितने टॉपिक्स डिस्कस हो गए.
Thank you.
But she
Thank
was
you.
still there. एक्चुअली मुझे लिखने के कुछ वर्षों के बाद ऐसा लगा कि कोई जरूरत नहीं थी लिखने की, ये तो वैसे ही ऐसी है, तो इसको ये ज्ञान देने की जरूरत थी नहीं. मैं एनीवे मैं लिख दी. दोराहा, when she was perhaps 13-14 years old. ये जीवन एक राह नहीं, एक दोराहा है. पहला रास्ता बहुत सहल है, इसमें कोई मोड़ नहीं है. ये रास्ता इस दुनिया से बेजोड़ नहीं है. इस रास्ते में मिलते हैं रीतों के आंगन, इस रास्ते में मिलते हैं रिश्तों के बंधन. इस रास्ते पर चलने वाले कहने को सब सुख पाते हैं, लेकिन टुकड़े टुकड़े होकर सब रिश्तों में बट जाते हैं. अपने पल्ले कुछ नहीं बचता. बचती है बेनाम सी उलझन, बचता है सांसों का ईंधन, जिसमें उनकी अपनी हर पहचान और उनके सारे सपने जल बुझते हैं. इस रास्ते पर चलने वाले खुद को खोकर जग पाते हैं. ऊपर ऊपर तो जीते हैं, अंदर अंदर मर जाते हैं. दूसरा रास्ता बहुत कठिन है. इस रास्ते में कोई किसी के साथ नहीं है, कोई सहारा देने वाला हाथ नहीं है. इस रास्ते में धूप है, कोई छांव नहीं है. जहां तसल्ली भीख में दे दे कोई किसी को, इस रास्ते में ऐसा कोई गांव नहीं है। ये उन लोगों का रास्ता है जो खुद अपने तक जाते हैं, अपने आप को जो पाते हैं। तुम इस रास्ते पर ही चलना। मुझे पता है ये रास्ता आसान नहीं है, लेकिन मुझको ये गम भी है तुमको अब तक क्यों अपनी पहचान नहीं है। बाद में पता चला इसे तो खूब अपनी पहचान है, बेकारी मैंने लिखा।
अब हमारा दिल ये चाह रहा है कि जोया से कहें अभी जाने की जिद ना करो, but she has to go. So sad कि अभी this evening has been seamless. It's been so beautiful. बिल्कुल, we used to think imagine a room and imagine if we were part of a room जहाँ जावेद साहब और जोया अख्तर हों. Can you believe it that you all have been part of that room? So it's been absolutely glorious. Thank you very much.
Don't
Thank you.
We have very good relations and we meet quite often.
नहीं,
ये दोनों साथ में।
अब एक छोटी सी आपसे इल्तिजा है, just for a moment, I'll just request Mr. Puneet Chatwal to join us on stage for a photograph. Mr. Ajay Sharma, and from Dabur we have Aman Gupta. From Pernod we have Dinesh Bakshi. From Brighton we have Pankaj Gupta and Etel Ravi Gupta. And Javed Saab and Zoya, I want to tell you that, just show me those, the most beautiful handcrafted from Kashmir. The shawls have been made with your names inscribed. So, you know, from Kashmir, from very, very genuine.
It reminds me of a suit.
Can I request everyone, all our partners, to join us on stage for a quick group photograph? Come. Kurash, please join us on stage. And yes, come, Kiran. Come. Come here, come here, come here. Come here.
Art come from the does art and culture come from the top of the pyramid or the bottom of the pyramid or both?
I think it's a two-way street, and both the things happen. The fact is that ultimately